Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is November 29th, 2025. We are in the New Testament book of John. We're going to read chapter 19, verse 17, all the way to the end, 42. All right. So Jesus has been crucified. He's on the cross. And John wants us to see what's on the cross over his head. Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. That Pilate's the one that put that there. So Pilate is attesting he is the King of the Jews. So God using evil for good, there's a good example of it. The Jews object, and Pilate says, hey, I put what I put. Then we see that his garments are divided, fulfilling Scripture. John gives us this story of Jesus looking down at him and Jesus' mother and saying, you know what, mother, this is your son now, John. John, this is your mother. Take care of her just like I would. So he's ensuring that his mother is taken care of by his best friend, and John tells us that he did for the rest of his life and the rest of her life. And then he says, it is finished, and he dies. That's his last words according to John. John wants us to see that how quickly he dies. Because the Passover is coming up, Passover has come up, and this is a high holy day, the Sabbath following the Passover, so it's very important that they want to get everything done before nightfall. So they go to Pilate and say, hey, we need to go break their legs, and we want to kill them right away. And they go to break their legs, but when they get to Jesus, he's already dead. And we know he's dead because the Roman soldier pierces his side with a spear, and it comes up through his lungs into his heart cavity, into his heart. That's why we see blood and water, that paramecium fluid come out. So we know Jesus is irrevocably dead. The soldier that did it knows that he killed him, and he's a professional. They take him down, and they bury him in a tomb. It happens to be Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. He's one of those Pharisees that secretly is following Jesus. So again, it's not all the Pharisees that are evil, but Pharisees as a group are opposed to Jesus, but there are individuals that are started to follow him, and Joseph is one of them. We see Nicodemus again. They take Jesus down and they put him in Joseph's own tomb because night's coming. And that's where this ends. So let's go ahead and we're going to read John chapter 19, verse 17 to 42. And he, bearing his cross, went out to a place called the place of a skull, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him. And two others with him, one on either side, and Jesus in the center. Now Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross, and the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Then many of the Jews read this title, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Therefore the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, do not write the King of the Jews, but he said, I am the King of the Jews. Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to each soldier a part, and also the tunic. Now the tunic was without seam, woven from the top in one piece. They said therefore among themselves, let us not tear it, but cast lot for it, whose it shall be, that the scripture might be filled, which says, they divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Therefore the soldiers did these things. Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by, he said to his mother, woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour that disciple took her to his own home. Excuse me. After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, said, I thirst. Now a vessel full of sour wine was sitting there, and they filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on hyssop, and put it to his mouth. So when Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. And bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. Therefore, because it was the preparation day, that the body should not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day, the Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken, and that they might be taken away. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. And he who was seen has testified, and his testimony is true, and he knows that he is telling the truth, so that you may believe. For these things were done that the scripture should be fulfilled. Not one of his bones shall be broken. And again another scripture says, they shall look on him whom they pierced. After this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission, so he came and took the body of Jesus. And Nicodemus, who at first came to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloe, about 100 pounds. Then they took the body of Jesus and bound it in strips of linen with the spices, as the custom of the Jews is to bury. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had yet been laid. So there they laid Jesus because of the Jews' preparation day, for the tomb was nearby. May God bless the reading of his word, and may God bless you. Bye.